In our previous video, we looked at how to find the trigonometric functions of specific angles and specific trig functions. An exercise that I'm absolutely going to ask you to be able to be cognizant of on examinations as well as the assignments is to be able to find the 6 trig functions at any angle. Okay, so if I give you any angle, whether that be on the unit circle or not, I will ask you guys to be able to find every single trig function or all 6 of them and to be able to rationalize it. So the first one we have is 3 pi over 4. All right. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go back to the very beginning. Okay. And we're going to memorize, if we haven't, we're going to memorize these definitions. Okay. So again, have these memorized. Okay. The sooner you memorize those, the easier your life is going to be. Okay. And if you haven't memorized them yet, I would make sure that you go through and memorize them really quickly. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, I'm looking at 3 pi fourths. So I'm going to go up to the unit circle, and 3 pi fourths is right here. And x is going to be negative root 2 over 2, and y is going to be root 2 over 2. And so we're going to find the 6 trigonometric functions at that angle. Okay, so now let's just remember that the sine of 3 pi fourths is going to be the y coordinate. All right. And remember, we said that the y coordinate was root 2 over 2. The cosine function at 3 pi fourths is going to be the x coordinate, and that's going to be negative root 2 over 2. Okay, so those should be really easy, the sine and the cosine functions. Okay, those are just basic functions. The tangent, though, is going to be y over x. So the tangent of 3 pi over 4 is y over x. And so we're just going to take these two angles, which are going to be root 2 over 2 divided by negative root 2 over 2. And of course, we could multiply by the reciprocal. And this is a technique that we're going to use a lot throughout this course. So we're going to have root 2 over 2 times the reciprocal of the denominator, which is going to be 2 over root 2. Those cancel, those cancel. This just becomes negative 1. All right. Now, like we said, once we find the sine, cosine, and tangent functions, we just flip them over to find the others. So if I want to find the cosecant of 3 pi fourths, I'm just going to say, well, that's 1 over y, and that's just going to be the reciprocal of what we found over here. So that's going to be 2 over root 2. And we've seen this a few times where we need to rationalize it. So we're just going to multiply by root 2 over root 2. We've seen this one several times already, but never hurts to see it again. That's going to be 2 roots of 2 divided by 2, or that's just going to turn into the square root of 2. Right? And the good news is for the secant of 3 pi over 4, it's going to be the exact same thing, except, so that's going to be the negative of 2 over root 2. All right, and we just rationalized it right here, so it's going to be the exact same thing, except it's going to be negative. Finally, for the cotangent at 3 pi fourths, we just take the reciprocal of negative 1, so that's 1, because that's going to be x over y, and that's going to be 1 over negative 1, the reciprocal of negative 1, which will be negative 1. All right. You can always check these in the calculator. Okay. And what I would do is I would just recommend picking one of these 3 to check, just like we did in the previous video in your calculator. A second example, theta equals 3 pi over 2. All right. So let's go back up to our unit circle. We find 3 pi over 2 right here. And so this one's going to be really easy because the x coordinate is 0, the y coordinate is negative 1. So using that, the sine of 3 pi over 2 is going to be negative 1, which is the x coordinate, or the y coordinate, excuse me. All right. The x coordinate is 0, so the cosine at 3 pi over 2 is going to be 0 because it's the x coordinate. Now remember, the tangent function, so the tangent of 3 pi over 2, which is going to be y over x. Oops, not sure how that happened, but it did. So y over x is going to be negative 1 over 0, which is undefined. Okay, so that happens. Okay, remember we saw that earlier in a couple other examples. Once we have, these three, then we just have the reciprocals. So for instance, the cosecant at 3 pi halves is 1 over the y value, which is 1 over -1, or that's -1. For the secant at 3 pi over 2, that's 1 over the x value. And we know that the x value is 0, so that's 1 over 0, which is undefined as well. All right, so multiple trig functions at specific angles can be undefined. Okay, so it's not just one of them that could be undefined. Finally, for the cotangent of 3 pi over 2, that is x over y. And we know that x is 0, y is -1, so 0 over -1 is 0. Okay, so there's our 6 trig functions. Right? So in the next video, what we're going to look at is we're going to find the 6 trig functions of any angle, but the angles might not be between 0 and 2 pi. So I'm going to show you the tricks to being able to do those. And then we're going to take a look at some really basic identities, some of which we've already been doing throughout our videos.